Hello lovely people, shall we go through all of the books that have entered my life recently?
I've
mentioned a couple of times that I've been on a bit of a book buying ban since about March. I have bought the odd book in between that time, but generally the date I set myself was my birthday. So, books we're going through today are both books that were gifted for me on my birthday and then the books that I have now allowed myself to buy now that my birthday has happened. I'm going to start with the two books that my partner bought me for my birthday. This is Gods of Jade and Shadow by Silvia Moreno Garcia. I've been so excited about this book for ages, ever since it came out, and I've been meaning to get my hands on it, and what I do with my partner is I give him a gigantic list of possible things, and then he picks a couple of them from it, because I quite like a surprise, but he likes a bit of guidance. So it's always really interesting to me to understand why he's picked certain books. And he picked this one because, essentially, of the mythology gods element to it. So this is set during the Jazz Age. We follow Cassiopeia, who accidentally frees an ancient Mayan god of death who offers her a deal. In return for Cassiopeia's help in recovering his throne, he will grant her whatever she desires. I just thought that this sounds so interesting. I don't really know anything about Mayan gods, so that's going to be really interesting to discover a bit more about. And I enjoy reading books that are like, here's mythology, let's posit it in a more contemporary time and let's like explore. I've heard really amazing things about this book. Everyone I know who's read it has absolutely raved about it, so I'm kind of going to go in with this like slightly less full knowledge and just sort of like see what it's like, see what I think. The other book my partner got me was Sea People by Christina Thompson, In Search of the Ancient Navigators of the Pacific. This is looking at the Polynesian Triangle and about the people who first went and navigated all of these islands and settled and that sort of thing. So I'm hoping to learn a lot more about Polynesian history. It's an area of the world that I think seems really interesting, and everything I have consumed of it has been super duper interesting, but I still feel like I don't really know a lot about. And so I'm just trying to read more books that are helping me build up my knowledge of things and places that I don't previously really know a lot about. So this, I think, is a mix of like history, geography, and anthropology, and I'm hoping I'm just going to learn a lot more about the history of a lot of the Polynesian islands and that sort of thing. So I'm super duper excited about this one. I also think the cover is really striking. Next up is a book that my mum got me, and I'm not going to be able to read this book, but I love it anyway. This is Alice in Wonderland, but in Old English. My mum has got really into Vikings, the show. I introduced her to the show. And as well as like the actual Vikings, there's also like the Anglo-Saxons as well. And so she used lockdown to teach herself to read Old English, which is like, if we ever wonder where I get it from, that's a hefty dose of it. So she saw this and she couldn't resist, so she posted this to me in like the peak of like proper lockdown, and it was just like such a little delight. This wasn't a birthday present, this was just like a thinking of you present, and it brought me such joy. I can't read Old English, so I don't think I'm actually going to be able to read this unless I put the hours in studying, but it's a delightfully interesting thing to own. Moving on to my dad, every Christmas and birthday my dad buys me a 2000 AD Ultimate Collection bind-up. He's been reading and buying 2000 AD for like decades. I've been reading it for about a decade as well, although on and off, patchy, mainly stealing his. The one he got me this time is Aquila. This is based on Spartacus. Spartacus was a Roman slave / gladiator who like led a revolt against the Roman Empire and that sort of thing. Aquila is one of the people involved in the revolt in this universe. What they did to punish Spartacus's followers is they were all crucified, and while being crucified, this character like throws up a prayer to the god of vengeance, who's like, hey, I see you, I acknowledge you, let's party. So I think this is going to be like dude seeking vengeance, probably some like supernaturally entities, unless that's the god, I don't know. But suffice to say, it's going to be another fun 2000 AD exploration, and I'm here for it. He also lent me a book. This is The Last Duel by Jager, which is a true story of crime, scandal, and trial by combat in medieval France. So this is looking at the last duel to the death that happened in medieval France, and it's sort of like just kind of like a case study of it, if you will. My partner has already read this, and he said it was really, really good. Also a very quick read, apparently, but it's sort of like looking at this final duel, and sort of I think it's looking at both like a bit of the history of like trial by combat in medieval France, and then also this one specific example. So that should be a fun piece of non-fiction to read. And then I have a couple of books that very sweet, kind, lovely friends sent me, and I'm eternally grateful and thankful. It is a weird thing to have a birthday in lockdown, as I'm sure some of you watching this will understand. So it meant a lot that some of my friends went out of their way to like send me little things, or just like be like, hi, thinking of you, blah blah blah. It's just like, you know, it's a weird time to be like, celebration in the flat without seeing anyone. But my very sweet kind friend Anna got me The Once and Future King by T.H. White. This really touched me because I have read The Sword in the Stone. I talked about it quite recently in my pairing fiction and non-fiction book recommendations video. So I really like Arthuriana. It's an area that I always wish that I have read more of than what I have, but I really like to explore it. And I did have a conversation with her ages ago about how I wasn't sure whether to continue on with this series because I wasn't sure how the rest of the books would be. The first book felt a little bit episodic. It was like, Arthur does this, Arthur does this. And I was like, how is the rest of this going to be? And we talked about this one bind-up edition, and I said how beautiful it was. So it's really sweet that she bought me this specific edition where it's all bound up together. So I am really interested in this one because the first book was it was fun. It was just like, it was a young Arthur having these episodes of adventures, and I was like, I don't know how this is going to work with the rest of the series. So now I will be able to find out, and we shall see. Just to carry that Arthurian theme onwards, my lovely friend and podcast co-host Mark got me Once and Future Volume 1, The King is Undead, by Kieron, Gillen, Dan Mora, and Tamra Bonvillain. I'm just going to read you the back, because I'd never heard of this before, but it sounds really cool. When a group of nationalists uncover the fabled scabbard of Excalibur, they use its magic to bring King Arthur back from the dead and fulfill a dark prophecy. But as the floodgates open, only retired monster hunter Bridget Maguire knows how to stop these mythic forces. Pulling her unsuspecting grandson Duncan into a world he thought only existed in stories, the two embark on a quest that will force them to navigate the complicated history of the Maguire family and confront the deadly secrets of Britain's past that threaten its very future. I am so excited for a kick-ass old woman monster hunter, and I am always on the lookout for books that have like older female protagonists, because that's something that I don't feel like I've read enough of and I would really like to read more of. So that aspect thrills me. Arthurian aspect thrills me, and then like monsters. Yes. It sounds great. Another very sweet, lovely person who completely surprised me with a gift is Bryony from the Indecisive Readers. She sent me On a Sunbeam by Tillie Walden, which I am so excited to read. I have actually met Tillie Walden at a con years ago, and then we briefly interviewed her on my podcast, and she's like the loveliest human. And just seeing how her career has sort of like exploded, I've just been like at the sidelines being like, I don't really know you, but like rooting for you, love your stuff. This is like this chunky little comic, and I know it's like a group of people who are on like a spaceship. I've heard that it's one of those ones that is not necessarily like the biggest on plot, but it's very much about like character. I think there's a female-female romance in this, if I'm correct. It's like found family, that sort of thing. These are like all of my buzzwords and all of my like ding ding ding, I'm gonna like this book. So I'm thrilled, and it was such a surprise. You were so sneaky, Bryony, but I love it and I value it, and it makes me babble like this because it was very unexpected, but thank you very much. Now we move on to the portion of the video that is books I bought myself. I'm going to start off with one that I have already mentioned briefly in a mid-year reading wrap-up, mid-year freak-out tag. This is, hang on, The Enchanted April by Elizabeth von Arnim. I have already read this book. The book chat where I talk about it has, I think, already gone live. I'll link it down below. I just saw this gorgeous edition because I read it on my Kindle. I just thought this was such a lovely edition. Just about these four women who go and spend an April together in this Italian crumbling little estate, and they will become the women who they've always wanted to be. And it was like lovely, sweet, comforting loveliness. So I thought, hey, I'll get this secondhand little pretty edition of it. Yes. There are a couple of themes that you might be able to tell that are like books that upon reading up my shelves I was like, I have no more books in this genre, I need to buy some. One of those is middle grade. So I've got 3 middle grade, starting with The Black Flamingo by Dean Atta. Obviously this one's been doing the rounds. I've heard so many good things. I'm so excited for it. It's told all in verse, which is, I've read one novel that was told all in verse before, and I actually really liked it. It was One by Sarah Crossan, and I thought it actually worked really well. So I'm super interested for that. It's about this young black British boy who is sort of like growing up. The Black Flamingo is, I think, his drag name, so as this goes on, it's like understanding his sexuality, getting into drag, that sort of thing. Everyone I know who's read it has said it was absolutely amazing and wonderful, so I'm like fully prepared to read it and like cry about how much I like it. The next two books I have briefly mentioned in my Draconathon TBR video. This is Dragonpull by Yoon Lee. This is one of the Rick Riordan Presents series. It's about Min, who is, her family are fox spirits. They're growing up on this very poor planet. An inspector comes one day and says that her older brother, Yoon, who is in the Space Force, has defected to go find this thing called the Dragon Pearl, and Min doesn't believe that he would do this, so she sort of like sets off to go find her brother and see if she can sort out what's happened. Thoughts to come on this on my Draconathon wrap-up. Same thing goes for Where the Mountain Meets the Moon by Grace Lynn. Spoiler alert, this one was a 5-star read for me, and I will also expand upon that in my Draconathon wrap-up, but like, loved this so much. This is about Min Lee, who grows up in the village of Valley of the Fruitless Mountain. I always get it wrong. And her family is very poor, and so she sets off to speak to the Old Man of the Moon to find out how she can change her family's fortunes. It was precious, and it now owns my whole heart. Another genre which I also have been really drawn to is queer books. Black Flamingo falls within that, as do the next 2 to 3, I now realise, books. So I got 2 queer non-fiction books. This is Trans Britain, Our Journey from the Shadows, edited by Christine Burns. This is a series of essays with, I think, different contributors, and it's sort of just about Trans Britain, so it's about sort of like the history of trans activism in Britain, some of the challenges that are currently being faced, because, let's be honest, the UK currently has a hugely increasing transphobia problem. I'm trying to be the best ally I can be by, like, combating knowledge, but it's easier to combat knowledge if you have knowledge, so I'm trying to continue my learning process. I also got the Book of Queer Prophets, curated by Ruth Hunt, which is 24 writers on sexuality and religion. I am not religious, but I find other people's attitudes to their religions, journeys with their religions, that sort of thing. I just think it is such a personal topic. That even though I sort of walk a little line between like agnosticism and atheism, and I like fall somewhere in the I don't know what's happening category, but I find other people's attitudes, relationships with their faith just very interesting, and so I'm always trying to learn more about stuff that I don't really know anything about. This has a mix of contributors, and I think it's going to be really interesting. I think that must be a journey to sort of navigate both your relationship with your sexuality and your relationship with your religion and how those things tie in. So I'm hoping that's just going to be quite like an illuminating, interesting read. The other book, which I now realise is also technically a queer book, is Amberlou by Lara Elena Donnelly. I've heard so many good things about this book. One of my bookish buzzwords that I keep saying is a bookish buzzword and then I keep never reading anything that fulfills it is like Weimar-era Berlin, and this book is described as Le Carré, I don't know, meets Cabaret. Vintage glam spy thriller Amberlou, where 3 lives intertwine with the fate of a nation on the brink. I know that it has, I think the main character is like a double agent queer woman, and I think it's going to be like everything my little heart wants, and I'm so excited to finally experience it. And I really love both versions of the cover, but this one's like delightfully matte, and I keep touching it and then being like, I don't want my little paws to ruin it. Moving on, I also picked up A Spark of White Fire by Sangu Mandana. This has been one that's been on my radar for ages, because all I really know about it is it's like a sci-fi retelling of the Mahabharata, which is a text that I keep meaning to check out, haven't done it yet, but hey. And it's in a universe of capricious gods, dark moons, and kingdoms built on the backs of spaceships. A cursed queen sends her infant daughter away, a jealous uncle steals the throne of Kali from his nephew, and an exiled prince vows to take his crown back. I think it just sounds like it's going to be super interesting and exciting. And I thought, I haven't read a lot of sci-fi lately because I haven't had any sci-fi in my reading boxes, so I was like, let's get a bit of sci-fi up in here. So for my book club, I picked up Girl, Woman, Other by Bernardine Evaristo. I've already read this because I read it for book club. One of the best books I've read this year. There will be a book chat with more thoughts coming soon, but this is kind of like a number of different narratives of mainly black women, but there is also one non-binary voice as well. And it's sort of like snapshots of these people in their lives, and then as you read it, it becomes apparent that there are like ties that link all these people together. I will talk about my feelings more in the book chat wrap-up when it gets posted live, but essentially, like, I loved it. I understand why it's been getting loads of awards and stuff. I thought it was really great. I now want to read everything else that she's written. I also picked up On the Come Up by Angie Thomas. What is this? Oh, it's bookmark. Woodwitch Emporium. I have never read any Angie Thomas, which seems like a bold statement to make because I know how beloved she is. I don't know why I picked this one up rather than The Hate You Give. Oh, I do know. I actually bought a different book, but the independent bookshop I got it from couldn't find it, and they were like, I'm so sorry, would you like a replacement? And I was like, yeah, sure. But I had to pick a book that was the same price. And I thought, this is a perfect opportunity to read some Angie Thomas. This follows 16-year-old Brie, who wants to be one of the greatest rappers of all time. I don't really know a lot about it. I know a lot of people who've read both books, who love both books. So I just thought, let's start my Angie Thomas journey here, shall we? Yes. And then the final book. Sorry, I just feel like I've been talking a lot. The final book is The Garden of Evening Mist by Tan Tuan Eng. I spoke about in my Asian Readathon wrap-up how The Gift of Rain was absolutely blew me away, and I absolutely loved it, and is definitely, again, up there with one of the best books I've read this year. This is the other book that Tan Tuan Eng wrote. He's a Malaysian author, and The Gift of Rain sort of focused on the Japanese occupation of Malaysia in World War II. This is set just after the end of World War II, and it's very much looking at sort of like the ramifications of that, like the aftermath of it. And again, where the first book had this relationship between this Malaysian boy and this Japanese man, and they learned Hokkaido together and that sort of thing, this one has like Japanese gardens as like sort of the topic that is being explored, and the main character wants to learn from this man the art of these gardens so that she can make a tribute to her sister who died in one of these camps during the Second World War. And then again, it's sort of like exploring all these ramifications and these fallouts and this like messy relationship and stuff like that. So the first book was so beautiful. They're not tied together, they're two standalones, but I loved that first book so much. I thought it was so gorgeously written, and I really like got captivated by it, so I just thought, let's read the other things that he's written. That's everything. I would love to know if you have read any of these. I would love to hear your thoughts on them. If you have recommendations for any of these like books related to any of these that you think I might like based on this, do let me know. I've been having a really good reading it. Like, that has been one of the highlights of these last few months, is I've been reading like There's No Tomorrow, so it's quite nice to be able to like purposefully buy books again, because that's one of the aims I set myself, was to be more purposeful in my book buying, and I think I've definitely done that, and each one of these taps into something that I've been wanting to explore further in the reading that I'm doing, and I'm just really excited to dive in, essentially. So hopefully this is going to start popping up in some book chats soon. There is a bit of a delay on my book chats, they're a couple of months behind where I'm at, but yeah, they'll get there eventually, and I would love to hear your thoughts on any of them. Have a lovely day, and I'll see you next time for something different.